Coming up on Watching Washington, the U.S. Senate passes major foreign aid bill for Ukraine and Israel. The details just ahead.
And oust U.S. Representative George Santos seat flips to the Democrats. Hear what that could mean for Dems in Congress moving forward.
Plus, a controversial Indonesian general claims victory in the nation's presidential election. All of those stories and more next on Watching Washington.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Watching Washington. It's Friday, February 16th, and I'm Maggie Kell.
And I'm Jen Libben. Thank you for joining us.
We begin with breaking news from Russia, where we're learning of the death of Alexei Navalny. The Russian opposition leader was 47 and died in prison while serving a 19-year sentence. The country's prison service says he felt unwell after a walk on Friday and lost consciousness. He was outspoken Kremlin critic who orchestrated some of the largest anti-government protests seen in recent years. He made global headlines while he was poisoned with a nerve agent in 2020. And in other news from Russia, CNN, among other media outlets, is reporting on new intelligence regarding the Russian military. Specifically, it's being reported that Russia has capabilities related to their efforts to deploy a nuclear anti-satellite system in space. Officials say it's not a clear and present danger, but rather technology that Russia is looking into designing. This comes ahead of the country's presidential election next month, where President Vladimir Putin will seek a fifth term.
On Tuesday, the Senate passed a $95 billion foreign aid package with funding for Ukraine and Israel. After months of bipartisan negotiations surrounding the aid and border policy, the Senate ultimately passed a version of the bill without any border provisions with a final vote of 70 to 29.
After not just a long night and weekend, but after months of work, we can say it's been worth it. Today we witnessed one of the most historic and consequential bills passed the Senate, a bill that so greatly impacts not just our national security, not just the security of our allies, but also the security of Western democracy as we know it.
The bill now goes to the House, where any further action appears unlikely after Speaker Mike Johnson voiced his opposition to the legislation.
Much more has to be done, of course, to secure the border, and what the Senate produced this week is silent on that issue. Senator McConnell and I have spoken about this in frank sessions, and let me be clear here again this morning. The Republican-led House will not be jammed or forced into passing a foreign aid bill that was opposed by most Republican senators and does nothing to secure our own border.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is set for a Senate trial after being impeached by the House by a narrow margin. Republicans accuse him of breaking immigration laws. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer hints that the trial will be short. Democrats who hold the majority are likely to vote for Mayorkas' acquittal. Legal experts suggest that the evidence against him doesn't meet the high bar for impeachment.
Democrat former Representative Tom Swayze has replaced Republican George Santos after his win in New York's special election. This will win further narrow the majority of Republicans in the House of Representatives, making this a positive development for President Joe Biden, giving him and his supporters a morale boost. Here is what Democrat Representative Pete Aguilar has to say on that matter.
It's a great day for the country, for the people of New York's 3rd Congressional District, and it's a return to placing someone in that seat with the dignity.
Upcoming special elections in other parts of New York, such as Queens and Long Island, can be seen as potential indicators for future outcomes.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is apologizing to his family for a Super Bowl ad that reflected back to the 1960 presidential campaign of his uncle, former President John F. Kennedy. In a post on X, he apologized for any pain caused by the ad, saying it was paid for by the PAC and not directly by his campaign. The ad, which is still pinned on the top of Kennedy's X page, uses his uncle's campaign song, Kennedy for Me, colorizing the original video and adding images of the independent candidate. The ad cost $7 million to air during the Super Bowl on Sunday night. The Democratic National Committee filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission, arguing Kennedy's super PAC violated campaign finance laws. Kennedy remains a long-shot candidate as a third-party option, yet could take voters away from others despite the controversy of the ad, according to NPR News.
7 years after the bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German were discovered, Delphi murder suspect Richard Allen has requested to be transferred to a county jail. This is due to a poor treatment at the correctional facility where he was currently placed. The team has claimed his current location, quote, will seriously, if not fatally, impact counsel's ability to effectively represent Allen due to the distance of travel and visitation conditions, end quote. Richard Allen moved facilities back in December 2023 due to reasons of mistreatment. However, this new request has been denied by Judge Francis Gohl. Allen will be seen back in court for a hearing on March 18th, and Allen's trial is still set for October 2024, 2 years after his arrest for the Delphi double homicide case. Up next, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson visits Moscow. More on his sit-down with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Plus, a new head of state in Indonesia. Hear why some are concerned about his election. Stay with us more, watching Washington next.
Imagine a world where Olympics and Paralympics are unified as one, and where all athletes at all levels have equal opportunities to play and perform at their full potential.
Athletics has been such an influential and transformative aspect of my life. So to me, RISE is about ensuring that every person that has the desire to participate in sport has the opportunity to do so.
This organization is about recognition. We believe in recognizing excellence where it is found, especially in Paralympic sports.
RISE is about driving change in our community and beyond. We hope that through our events and initiatives, we can galvanize people for our cause and inspire them to create an ever-growing network to help achieve our mission.
It's about connecting people of various backgrounds and who truly care about creating meaningful change together.
We develop projects and hold events to bring people together at the interface of inclusivity, sports, and engineering.
Our goal is to promote the equality of all sports and to improve sports performance and accessibility.
Join us so that you can have a major contribution in creating meaningful change.
Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson visits Moscow early this week to interview Russian President Vladimir Putin. News of Carlson's visit was widely broadcast by Russian state-run media. The conservative host sat down to record a nearly 2-hour-long interview in the Kremlin with Putin, mainly covering the Russian-Ukraine war and Putin's perspective on the West. Following the sit-down, Putin expressed disappointment and said that he didn't fully enjoy the interview. He told the press that he wished Carlson would have asked tougher questions and given him the opportunity to provide tough answers.
A former army general with controversial past has claimed victory in Indonesia's presidential election. Unofficial results show Prabowo Subianto, 72 years old, winning nearly 60% of the vote, enough to avoid a presidential runoff, with around 85% of votes counted. According to state-owned news organization Antara, CNN affiliate CNN Indonesia, and Reuters, which are reporting early counts done by a series of non-government think tanks. Prabowo hails from an elite political family, and his past is controversial, especially his time during years of the late dictator Suharto, who was also his former father-in-law. Accusations of human rights violations in his military past have dogged him throughout his political career.
President Joe Biden is taking aim at former President Donald Trump. He condemned a comment Trump made over the weekend about NATO. At a rally in South Carolina, Trump criticized nations that don't meet spending guidelines on defense.
Well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Biden expressed a very different view of the alliance on Tuesday.
No other president in our history has ever bowed down to a Russian dictator. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I never will. For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American. When America gives us word, it means something. When we make a commitment, we keep it. And NATO is a sacred commitment.
Most NATO nations fail to meet the target of spending for the GDP on a national defense. However, that number is a guideline. Failing to meet it does not create bills, debts, or legal obligations. This is not the first time that Trump has targeted NATO. It was widely reported during his presidency that he considered withdrawing America from the alliance. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was formed shortly after World War II.
An outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, has been linked to the city's water. The Minnesota Department of Health confirmed the connection after water samples from two buildings both tested positive for Legionella bacteria. The disease is caused by inhaling the bacteria in the water. However, in rare cases, it has been known to spread person to person. The city's public utilities general manager said they plan to flush out and disinfect the water system to reduce the risk of Legionella. There have been 14 confirmed cases of Legionnaire's in Grand Rapids since April. Symptoms of Legionnaire's disease are similar to pneumonia, fever, cough, shortness of breath, muscle aches, and headaches. Symptoms typically develop from 2 to 14 days after exposure. Most cases can be treated with antibiotics. However, about 1 in 10 people infected die of the disease.
The FDA has announced Fresh Creative Foods has voluntarily recalled some of the salad dressings and sauces due to a possible risk of listeria from cheese supplier Rizzo Lopez Foods. Listeria is a bacterial disease that can be very dangerous for young children. CNN also reports that salad kits like Dole, President's Choice, and Market Side are also being recalled for a listeria risk. Dole branded kits were processed on the same line as a cheese that was recently recalled for possible traces of listeria. They were distributed in 25 states and 5 Canadian provinces.
CBS went further in this story by explaining that this has been going on since January 11 with Rizzo Lopez Foods, announcing their nationwide recall of, quote, 344 cases of Mexican grating cheese after Hawaiian officials found listeria in a sample. So far, 26 people have gotten sick and 23 people have been hospitalized. Anyone with the products are urged to discard them immediately. Dole says so far there have been no reported illnesses connected to the products. Taylor Swift continued to sweep the nation last weekend as her boyfriend Travis Kelce was able to win his 3rd Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. Taylor was in attendance at the game, and this constant exposure of her has left some people wondering, is there something to this? President Joe Biden did not help with the cause when he tweeted out, "Just like we drew it up," after the Chiefs' victory on Sunday, despite not having any connections to the Chiefs. This was a satirical comment about how the NFL is scripted, but it got people wondering if maybe there is some connection to Swift and the U.S. government. A recent poll by Monmouth University claims that 1 in 5 Americans think that Taylor is a part of a government agency to get President Joe Biden reelected in November. While this would be a crazy story, it would not be the craziest thing that we've heard about the U.S. government. Our in-studio guest this week is West Lafayette Mayor Erin Easter.
The full interview just ahead on Watching Washington.
So I am the president of the ski club. I'm pretty decent at skiing, I would say, but I still am cautious and reserved when I skied. In Copper, one of the other officers was like, we're hitting this today. The last day, we're gonna do it, and you're gonna come up with me. He really convinced me, and we got to the top of the lift, and as we were going up the lift was literally like this. Then we get to the top, and I was angry. We're looking over this ridge, and you can't see where the hill goes. You're looking over the edge, and you don't see anything. Once I got over that little ridge and I was able to kind of see where I was going, once I got to the bottom, it was like a great accomplishment. If you want to have the time of your life, definitely check out Purdue Ski and Snowboard Club.
Are you looking for a new hobby?
Or do you want to have a fun evening with your friends?
Then come climb to new heights at the Co-Rec Climbing Wall.
The Center for C-SPAN, which is this organization, the CCSC, what we do is we facilitate like a bunch of organizations, different programs for Brian Lamb, which is the founder of C-SPAN. Anyone can be part of CCSC, whether it be through our various internships, our competitions, just to be involved, even like our student community meetings that we have every week. Anyone can go, you don't have to be communications or poli-sci. You just meet so many people, the connections you make is kind of crazy, the range that CCSC has. So yeah, it's just provided me so many opportunities to like kind of achieve the goals I have personally and forward to like whatever career paths I choose.
We have a special guest with us in studio this week.
Erin Easter is the mayor of West Lafayette. Watching Washington's Katie Doninger will join us after the break with a discussion about the city that Purdue calls home.
Thank you. That's right. I've got West Lafayette Mayor Erin Easter with me to discuss how city issues impact Purdue students. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is, you were elected in November and have been in office for more than a month now. Mm-hmm. What issues are at the top of your priority list right now?
Well, we have a lot of priorities that we were interested in going into the election. And when we created a platform of issues that we wanted to focus on, there were a couple of things that we didn't include. So those two big issues right now are water, which obviously we'll probably have a discussion about later, and then property tax assessment issues. We have this issue at the moment that we're trying to work through. I'm grateful that I had a good background in local government before taking this position. So I know how to do all of the nuts and bolts things, and I can focus on the really big things as they come up. But we're focused on early childhood education, housing, tying smart growth to the assets that we have here at Purdue University and matching up what we do really well and better than anybody else in the world and leveraging that for growth and job opportunities.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned housing, so
yeah.
My next question is about housing. It's well known that there's a housing crisis in West Lafayette for Purdue students, specifically the lack of space and high rent. What are your plans to help if you are able to?
Sure. So when it comes to housing, any kind of housing that we have in West Lafayette, what we're really dealing with is a supply and demand issue. We simply don't have enough housing to satisfy all of the housing needs that we have within the community. So we have an ongoing housing study. It should be done in the next few weeks, actually. It's really close to being finished. And we're not just looking at student housing, we're looking at housing across the entire city and identifying what are the best mechanisms of delivering housing to the community, what the appropriate location for those are, and really identifying where we're missing, where there's a gap. So we know that student housing, we're still pretty far behind, and both between the university, PRF, and the city of West Lafayette have jointly been working together to address that issue. Over the last 2 years, we've probably approved 2,550 new beds of housing that are specifically student related. That's not including some other projects that Purdue and PRF are working on, which does increase the housing capacity within West Lafayette as well. But we're really, we continue to work toward those projects. One of the things that we have to balance is we can create a new project and build a new apartment building that doesn't answer the cost problem, but it also leads us to a deficiency for a year or two while new housing is being built if they're tearing down older housing. A couple of benefits: they're safer buildings to live in because they have modern fire suppression technology, which we appreciate. We're always worried about the livelihood and liveliness of our student population. We want to make sure that everybody's safe. So we're looking at quite a few things and working on a lot of initiatives related to housing, but those are just a few for student housing.
So how does the mayor work with the university? Obviously, Purdue is a big part of West Lafayette. So how do you interact with Purdue?
It is a big part of West Lafayette. So in 2014-2015 timeframe, the city of West Lafayette annexed Purdue University. Prior to that, and when I was a Purdue student, the university wasn't technically part of the city.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so fun fact. So now all students that are living on campus or nearby in adjacent neighborhoods who are actually residents of the city of West Lafayette. And it's really important that we represent our students in a number of ways. First, we have a city council seat that is dedicated to a student district, so you always have representation on our city council. But two, our staff coordinates with the university on a lot of things. It's not just that we need to have conversations at the top with President Chiang and myself, but you need to have conversations at every level of an organization to make sure that you're working cohesively. So there are roadways that are Purdue roadways and roadways that are West Lafayette roadways, and nobody knows the difference when they're driving over the road. They just want to make sure that the snow's cleared on a day like today, or that the road is in proper working order. So we have to work collaboratively all of the time to make sure that it is a seamless experience no matter where you are in the community, and that the two organizations are functioning together the way that they should to solve community problems.
Also on the topic of Purdue, so what happens in the summer when Purdue isn't in session? Like, how is the city of West Lafayette affected by that?
Sure. So we have, because there have been some changes in the way that Purdue offers summertime programming, we do have quite a few students who stay during the summer. It's a lot more laid back in the summertime, but we still have a large number of students who stay here, especially in our near campus neighborhoods over the summertime. What you do see in West Lafayette on those occasions is that we have augmented business hours oftentimes. So Gray House Coffee Shop. It's near City Hall. It's one of our favorites. They have augmented hours while students are gone. And so it's not something that everybody sees, but it's a little bit quieter around campus and around the community during that time. But it just adds to the excitement when students come back in the fall. It's a really exciting time to be in a college community.
Yeah, I came back here before school started, and it's just leagues different than like what school's going on. So switching gears a little bit, last week we interviewed Lebanon Mayor Matthew Gentry about the LEAP project and the water issue. He mentioned that he would be open to meeting with you and Lafayette Mayor Tony Rosworski. Is that something you would agree to? Do you think it would be productive?
Sure. One of the things that I think Tippecanoe County does really well, it's the reason that I moved back here, is that everybody on every level of government, organization, industry, nonprofit, they all collaborate. We are all working together to achieve a common goal. And we can't do any of that work alone. None of us are big enough to achieve that on our own. So we have to do that together. And there has always been a strong sense of collaboration in this county. It continues until this day. And that is how we approach everything that we do. So it really defines Tippecanoe County and how we go about anything that we do. And we certainly want to collaborate with our peers and partners across the state as well. We might have a disagreement about something, but it doesn't mean that we can't be collaborative.
What is your position on the issue of sending water from Tippecanoe County to Boone County for this economic development project?
Sure. So there are a few things when it comes to water that I think are really, really important. And it's not just the issue of water leaving Tippecanoe County and going to Boone County. That's obviously an issue. What is more concerning is having a statewide water policy that protects all Hoosiers and makes sure that we have the water resources that we need for the long haul, and that we have, that we're appropriately planning for where we do and do not have adequate water. So if we're looking at a holistic study and we identify there are places that need water, we are looking at that problem commonly as Hoosiers, not from one county to another county. So that's one thing. Two, we need to protect our watersheds. We need to make sure that we have water for many, many years to come. Doing a study and studying 30 years out really isn't enough looking out into the future to understand our really critical sources and scarce resources when it comes to water. And then the final thing is the wisdom of removing water from one watershed to another. I'm originally from the West Coast. I have a lot of family who grew up in Colorado, and I understand the challenges that come with having scarce water resources and coming up with deals and transporting water across states, jurisdictional boundaries with federally funded projects. That can become a really challenging situation. So I think as we look at this, we really need to take a step back and look at the entire state. So what has happened in the intervening time since the LEAP project and this water issue came up is that the Indiana Finance Authority has now taken over this water study. And they've done previous water studies across the state of Indiana. And it was one of their studies that identified that central Indiana would be running low on water by 2050, which is really helpful to have an organization like that who's accustomed to doing that kind of work. And who will not just be looking at Tippecanoe County's resources, but a 14 county area resource kind of pool to understand what we have, what we need, and what growth looks like for us in the future, and making sure that we protect our aquifers as well. So really excited that that transition has taken place. Jim McGough, who's running that study, has proven to be someone who takes his time and is very thorough and really good about doing these kinds of studies. So we're happy about that, and we look forward to seeing the recommendations that he makes for Tippecanoe County, similar to the ones that he made for Central Indiana, and hopefully something regarding some strong water policy will come of that.
Okay. One of your campaign platforms was green energy. How do you plan to pursue more green energy in the city?
There are a lot of ways that can be leveraged. So a few things that we've done in the city over a number of years. One is that we have a wellness center on the north side of the city. It's a 72,000 square foot facility. And on the top of that gym box, we have a whole fleet of solar panels. So we're capturing energy that way and reusing it in that building, which is probably taking care of a third of the operating utility cost of that facility. It's great for our Parks Department, who that's not a budget line item for them. It's great for our taxpayers that we are being smarter with the resources that they give us. And it's just a good thing to do, right? It's an environmentally conscious thing to do. And we will integrate that into every project that we do. We've also started transitioning our police fleet to a hybrid police fleet. So we're reducing our consumption of fossil fuels through gasoline. And also reducing the cost to taxpayers. So it's not just smart in terms of coming up with more conscious uses of our natural resources, but also saving taxpayer dollars and reinvesting those back into the community in different ways. We'll have a wet weather treatment facility at our wastewater treatment plant, and one of the things that we're studying there as we go through design is how does a more efficient energy system work at our wastewater treatment facility. They move a lot of water. Water is heavy and it requires a lot of resources. So we are hoping to do smarter design to get to a better place with that as well.
So that is all the time we have today. Thank you to our guest, Erin Easter, for being with us today, and thank you for watching. See you next time on Watching Washington.